you were questioning whether or not we should call this podcast Lost But Found. Why were you having doubts?
I think with the title Lost But Found, it implied that the lost had been found, and that this would now showcase conversation stories that really revolved around, how much nicer and greater things are on the other side, right? Being found is so relieving, you know,
Mm-hmm.
everything's just sunshine and rainbows. But when we've kind of recorded over the past, few weeks and stuff, just like even just having conversation, attempting to kind of figure out the voice, I always found that we ended up questioning a lot more, or being a little bit more lost in our thoughts
Mm-hmm.
than actually having answers. But found again implies that you now have found also the answers, right?
Yeah.
You're not still quote unquote lost in your thoughts.
Sure.
So it's almost like we should have just called this Lost.
Yeah, but that thing kind of crashed and burned in the mid 2000s.
Yeah, right.
But it's funny because sort of like I mentioned, I think Lost But Found is both a short-term thing, maybe, where there are moments in our lives where if we feel lost and like we can't connect to anyone or to God or whatever you want to connect to, and then it's like, okay, I know where I belong, but that it's also not a linear journey. That just because you're found in one moment doesn't mean you're gonna get lost again. Doesn't mean like life is not gonna knock you on your ass again, right? And then the other part of it is Lost But Found can also be for those people aspirational. I am lost, but I want to be found.
Yeah.
That's funny. The future is also found.
Yeah.
It's not just the past.
Yeah. No, I like that point. I think I was kind of going along the train of thoughts while you were speaking. I was considering, though, as far as like audience, for example, reason why Lost But Found actually works, why I ended up just saying, forget it, Lost But Found works really well, is because being found is... Oh, man, I lost my train of thought. Hold on.
Don't worry, you'll find it.
I was listening to you, and then I was like, oh, no, I had a thought, and then I was trying to explain it, and I forgot it. It was something you were saying prior to, like in the earlier part of that whole like.
Oh yes, it's
exploring
not a
lost-
linear. It's not
Yeah.
a linear path. It could also be like a more of a short-term thing where, like day to day, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing today or like this month, and then it's like, okay, I found my purpose. The thing that really connects with me though is just because you were lost at one point and then you found a purpose and you found God or whatever, doesn't mean that you're not going to get lost again. Life will just throw things at you, and
It was Lost But Found. What we're searching for here in a podcast called Lost But Found is acknowledging how we're constantly lost, but we're in search of finding answers every single time we stumble, in hopes of finding peace. Some people may have answers that work for them, but our hope, or my intention, right, through this is to explore why we're still sometimes finding ourselves lost, and see which answers work for us, see which answers don't. Not necessarily pick and choose what we think is like, oh, this is the right answer. No, it's like we'll take every answer because, again, people are different, and so what works for one won't work for others. But just basically try to find creative ways to answer the same question for all the people who may differ on, how they approach certain things. I think that's really important.
yeah, and going back to, we're really trying to understand why solutions are not sometimes universally applicable. Yeah, and that's where the understanding part comes in.
Exactly.
And like through the understanding, we sort of look at the human side of people versus like labeling them as one thing or the other. And then this whole thing sort of helps us, get one step closer to being found, one step closer to being better, self-improvement, etc.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like the three pillars of understanding, self-improvement,
Yeah.
and humanity are sort of tied in together there.
Yeah, exactly. I think the reason why I wanted to start this podcast, or we did, want to just kind of say, okay, what about, again, let's bring it back to our humanity. Let's bring it up to people, because at the end of the day, on a human level, we're all feeling a little lost. And I want to explore that experience. I want to talk about that experience. I want to explore why we're still lost, like we said. I want to explore different ways to find ourselves. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So pretty much, hopefully, the upcoming episodes address these kinds of questions, and
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
that should be a fun conversation.
We'll see.